My heart had beat 22 million times that morning. I was 23, married to a girl who was 22 and a half. We were student missionaries up above the Arctic Circle in Alaska. And the story I've got for you this morning is about a series of mistakes that I made while I was there, and about how my sled dog saved my life. Now, the dog I'm going to bring out is not a sled dog. He's a therapy dog. His name is Trigger, and he's the namesake of one of the lead dogs that saved my life that day in Shungnak. So picture a colt. Oh, hi, Trigger. Hi, did you come out? Hi, Trigger. Come here. Yeah. So Trigger is a therapy dog. He has about 2,000 hours of therapeutic experience. Trigger, come here. Don't find something to pee on. Yeah. Come here. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to stay with me. Yeah. So by design, dogs are created to serve their masters. Every day when he sees me, it's like the first day he sees me. He's always happy. Can you sit? Yeah, that's nice. Can you lay down? Can you lie down? You don't want to? Go ahead, lie down. Lie down. That's nice, yeah. Yeah, you can get up and move around in a little bit. So they're designed by their creator to be happy to see you every day. And so on this day, I was in my shop, and you'll need to keep track of some stuff. So the parsonage was right here. And there was a window outside the kitchen here, and you could look out and see where the dogs were. Now the church was over here. I was a missionary pastor, married to Jeannie, and so the church was over here. And then way over here, around the corner, was the dog lot. And I had a team of about 8 dogs, and they were all on poles out there. And they stayed outside all day long. They never came in the house. You want to go say hello, Trigger? They never came in the house. And so my dog lot was over there. Now, all around the dog lot were the carcasses of caribou and moose. I learned to hunt, and that's what I fed my sled dogs, was caribou and moose and salmon. And so I had been in my shop working on my Polaris snowmobile, and I'd put new spark plugs in when I heard coming in over the top of the house the Twin Otter, which was the mail plane. Mail plane came in every morning. And so I decided I would take my snowmobile out and meet the mail plane. And I was not wearing a coat like this. This coat turns out to be an important part of the story because I never wore it. I should have been wearing it. Now that morning, yesterday morning when I woke up, it was 13 degrees in Battle Creek. This morning it's quite a bit warmer, but it was 30 degrees below zero in Shungnak the morning I woke up. And 30 below is not very cold for that part of the country. And so I went out to the airport out of town, and a little lady pulled on my coat. I had a light coat on, and she said, "Could you go down river and get some fish for me from my fish cache?" And I said yes. So I drove my snowmobile back to town. Jeannie was there, and I came in, and by this time it's 10:30 in the morning. Now the last time I had eaten was at 6 o'clock the night before. I hadn't had breakfast yet. I'd gotten up and gone and worked in the shop, and I was without calories. And I said, I'm going to go down to the fish camp with the dog team, and I'm going to bring fish back. And she says, well, don't you want breakfast? And I was running on adrenaline and exuberance, and I said no. And so off I went. Out of the house, I had a a muskrat or a beaver hat on. And so out we went. And so I went around to the back of the dog lot, and I got the dog sled, and I harnessed it up. Now Trigger was my lead dog, and this has got plastic shoes on it so it won't scratch the floor. So, and what you do is you've got a long rope, and you put the lead dog way out there, and his job or her job is to hold the cord or hold the rope tight while you're harnessing the dogs. So, and this is called a racing sled. I actually raced with this in Alaska. It's made out of hickory, and but the sled that I had was a basket sled, and it was quite a bit longer. It came out like this far, and I brought along a threadbare small rug to put into the sled to keep the fish from falling out, because I was going to bring fish back for Pansy Berry. And so it's 30 degrees below zero. I didn't put the coat on, and I headed out of town with the sled dogs. Trigger was in the lead, and we went down the hill. Now, heat rises and cold falls, and it was a gray day, love in the gray, and I was in the gray. I went down the hill onto the big Kobuk River, and I headed downwind and downriver. Now, the wind was coming in at about 10 miles an hour, and sled dogs move at about 10 or 12 miles an hour once they get moving. And so I was moving along, I was sweating, and you burn about 1,000 calories an hour when you're driving dogs. No supper, or I had supper the night before, no breakfast. By this time, it's nearly 11 o'clock in the morning, because I've met the mail plane, and I've gone, and now I'm on my way down, and I'm exuberant. I don't have the right kind of clothes. So this is a series of mistakes that I made. And it's interesting, the most trouble I've ever been in my life almost always involve me making mistakes. I wasn't sinning. I was being careless. I wasn't listening to the things I should have been listening to. I should have had calories. I should have had a survival kit with me. I didn't take it. In that village, you're not supposed to leave the village without a gun. I didn't have a gun. And I was happily going down river. And I can remember I was singing and all sorts of things. And so I got down to where the fish cache was, and if you've ever seen pictures from Alaska, this looks like a little cabin, but it's up on high poles, as high as this thing right where the pipes are, and you have to climb up with a ladder, and it's to keep the bears and the wolverines from getting up and eating your fish. And so I stopped, and I had to go up off of the river to go up and get the fish. And that was the first inkling that Harold was in huge trouble, because I'd been moving at 10 miles an hour, and all of a sudden I was stopping. So 10 miles an hour of wind was coming into my face. Now, what I didn't know is when I went off the mountain from where the parsonage was onto the river, which was the lowest point, it was flowing towards Kotzebue, the temperature had fallen. Now it was 55 degrees below zero. And I had been burning 1,000 calories an hour. I was hot, I was sweating, and I stopped, and I felt that 10-mile-an-hour wind coming into my face. And something went off back in the back of my mind, and I said, I am in real trouble. So I turned the dog team around. It's the last thing I remember doing, and I got into the sled. And the sled was quite a bit bigger than this sled, but you can sit in it. It's as wide as you are. I got in the sled, hi Trigger, and the last thing I remember was having my feet up and looking out between my boots at the sled dogs heading back towards home. Now, Trigger was not a trained leader at that point. He became a good trained leader later on. There were probably 15 or 20 alternate routes home, many of which would lead down a trail that would not circle around towards home. Lots of people had been driving their snowmobiles and dog sleds. The dogs loved to chase down the different paths, but I was sitting in the sled, and what was happening at 55 below zero, I now had 20 miles an hour in my face. And I did the calculation before I came. I had a wind chill of 94 degrees below zero. The COVID vaccine needs to be kept at 90 below zero. This was 4 degrees colder than that, and it was coming into my face, and I didn't have a good coat on, and I was there sitting with a thin rug over me, trying to keep warm. And I began to freeze to death. My heart had beat up to that point about 22 million times. That's about how many times it's beat by the time you're 23. And my heart was beginning to slow down because I was pooling all of my resources in my thoracic cavity. And my brain, which hadn't been using enough oxygen up to this point to make good choices, my brain also stopped working, and I went completely black. I couldn't see or hear anything. And here's what I think happened. And I have a number of these scenarios. Dogs saved my life more than once up there. Maybe some other time I can tell you about them. Here's what I think happened. I don't think it was a gray day in heaven. I think it was a gorgeous day in heaven. I think it's gorgeous up there now. I think my Creator is sitting up there now, paying attention to Harold, talking to you 200, all spread out. They told me that this is maxed out. This is as full as we can get this building today. And I've been here when Pastor Dwight has had it completely packed out. Thousands of us. There are only 200 of us here today. So the Lord is sitting up there, attending to the universe, and he says, uh-oh, Harold's in trouble down there. And I had prayed in the sled. I said, Lord, Lord, help me. And here's what I think happened. There's a place in Daniel where he causes an angel to fly swiftly down on a Sabbath day when Daniel is praying. And I think he caused an angel to fly swiftly down to Shungnak, Alaska, and help a lead dog named Trigger make his way back to my house. And he did. I was completely out of it. I was not conscious at all. They went up all the hills, and they had stopped before on all the hills to rest, but they made it into my front yard, and they came in and they stopped right here. They had never stopped here before, because around the corner over there where the dog lot is where the caribou and the moose were, and the stuff for dogs too. And that was the end of the trail, so they would always go around there. But they pulled up and they stopped right outside of my kitchen window. And Jeannie looks out and sees a load of fish on the sled. Now, we had about 6 puppies, and they lived underneath the church, and they came out to say hello to their mothers and fathers. There were the grown-ups on the dog team, and they came out and they were frolicking around saying hello to their parents, and the dogs just stayed there. I think the angel was still up there holding Trigger and keeping them all from pulling the sled, which is really easy to move with just 150 pounds on it, on the snow. And I think he stopped the dogs. So Jeannie came out and she saw my boots, and she figured out it was me, and so she helped me into the house. The old men in the village, when they heard the story, they said that I was within half an hour of being completely dead, that my heart would have stopped, that everything would have frozen up. I was half an hour from, and people freeze to death up there every year, up above the Arctic Circle in Alaska. And they said I was within half an hour of that. If the dogs had gone home, if they had gone around the corner, I would have frozen to death in my own backyard before anybody had come out. So it's a story of God taking care of us in the gray. One of my takeaways from it, and interestingly enough, I've lived a long time since I was 23. I've made lots more mistakes. I've been rescued a number of times by my Creator, who for some reason still wants me on the job. As Azuk said, I'm a clinical psychologist. I spend my time saying, how does that make you feel? Helping people figure out what they're going to do, what their major's going to be, who they're going to marry, if they marry, all of those kinds of things. And for some reason, I think my Creator still wants me on the job. I don't see Abraham or anybody. He was older than I am today when God called him to go over to Canaan. So bow your heads with me and I'll pray. Dear Father in heaven, you hear each of these beating hearts, many or most of which are close to 22 million heartbeats since they're nearing or are 23 years of age. Please bless each beating heart. I know you have a plan for each one. I know you continue to have a plan for me, that you want to be with me and where I am. So I ask your blessing on each heart. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Okay, Trigger, here we go.